Listeners, are you ready for your monthly literary adventure? We now have the BFF Book Club. Join us each month to explore a new book. After reading, connect with fellow book lovers and meet the author in a live interview. Can't make it live? Don't worry. We'll send you the recording. You can find all the upcoming book club selections at www.bookishflights.com/read/BFF Book Club. Hey listeners, today's episode is brought to you by bakerbookhouse.com. Make sure you stay tuned at the end of the episode to hear all about their book flight and the discount on their books. In today's episode, I am chatting with Joanna Davidson Politano. She is the award-winning author of 8 novels. She loves tales that capture the colorful, exquisite details in ordinary lives and is eager to hear anyone's story. She lives with her husband and their children in a house in the woods near Lake Michigan. Her latest novel, The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House, was released yesterday. Congratulations, Joanna, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Joanna's joining us late at night, her time, at least late in my mind. Is 9:45 late for you as a mom?
Yeah, I mean, it feels late, but we've had later nights, so.
Yeah. I sometimes by the time I get the kids in bed, I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm ready for bed. I'm falling asleep half the time with them.
Right?
So I admire you for being here at 9:45 your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yes. Well, I feel like you are so much more than this bio. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, I'm homeschooling my kids, which has been a whole lot of fun. I like to teach writing in my co-op, and I lead a writing group at my church. I play the
Nice.
piano. I go on a lot of adventures with my kids. We do a lot of hiking and outdoor stuff, things like that. And we end up with a lot of rescue pets. So, yeah.
Do you find them along the adventures, or is this is a separate piece?
I don't know. We just people kind of know that that is our life, and they just come to us somehow. We just
They
end up with
flock your
them.
way.
Yeah,
I think that's the beauty of homeschooling, though, is you can do these adventures with your kids, right? It just gives you so much freedom of your time to be able to do it.
right. It feels like I get a second childhood, and I'm not sad about that.
Yeah, I've loved learning with my kids all over again as well. It's
For
like,
sure.
oh, I forgot about these facts, or this was really interesting, and I'd love to learn it all over again.
Yeah, learning as an adult is really, really cool. You pick up so much more.
Yeah. I love also that your life, obviously, you are an author, so writing is part of your life, but I love that you've blended it into, like you said, the co op or with your church as well, that you've kind of
Mhm.
had a community through that too.
Oh, definitely. I've met a lot of readers who I've been able to connect with and stuff like that. And then I integrate, I bring my kids along to my book events and we do a lot of storytelling. So there's just so much crossover in all the parts of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, back to the beauty of homeschooling is I think you can really do that, right? It's like you can sit down with 7 picture books and just snuggle up with your kids and do that. And that can be the lesson for the day.
Right. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Have you discovered new books to you in like the picture book realm?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I grew up reading, of course, Dr. Seuss and those kinds of things. New to me is Mo Willems.
Oh,
That
yes.
came along when we had kids, and he does The Picky Elephant. And even when my kids are now a little bit older, my oldest is almost 11, they still like them. They're still really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like the illustrations in that are very distinct. Like it's like you see that book and you know it's a Mo Willems book.
Yep. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I like love finding these treasures of picture books, and that's part of why I love talking about reading, right? And having this show is you get so many great books coming your way and recommendations.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about who you are as a writer. You had your latest novel come out yesterday. Can you tell the listeners about The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House?
Sure. Well, this story I actually roped my husband into helping me with. So he's an engineer. We have no skills in common, really. So Writing is not his thing. Engineering, totally not my thing. The book is not super engineering heavy, but there are a lot of really interesting gadgets, and it makes the house kind of take on a life of its own, kind of like a smart house.
Okay.
It's based off a real house in England, and so it's about a woman who is a clockmaker, and she goes and invents, or she inherits this house from this uncle who is an industrialist. And there's just tons and tons of unfinished gadgets. And she's having a field day. She loves it. These are like riddles that haven't been solved, and she's so excited. But of course, there's another couple of claims on the inheritance, and some people who think that she's responsible for the death of her uncle. And so it gets a little complicated, and she gets to go on some adventures, which isn't naturally her thing. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It sounds like there'll be lots of I don't know if quirky is the right word, but just these like unique and like these gadgets and just kind of figuring out what they are.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I feel like the whole house is a little bit quirky. I read a lot about inventions in the Edwardian era that never took off, like eyeglasses for horses and things like that. So I pulled a lot of really fun inventions that interested me, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah. So once you had this idea, did you then go dig into the research piece of it? Like you said, the Edwardian inventions that never took off?
Yes, I started with this house that exists. It's the first hydro-powered house, which is powered by water pressure. And just all the inventions that were actually in that house that were just so fun. And then I got a whole book of failed inventions, which was probably my favorite part. And
Yeah.
there's so many, I couldn't even include them all. They were hysterical. The things that people thought of that would be useful.
Oh, I was just talking with my kids, speaking of our kids, about like the clap on, clap off light.
Yes, I remember those.
And my son was like, they really had that? And I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing. I'm like, I don't know if it's still a thing, but it was.
That was like the cool kid thing when I was a kid. I'm dating myself, but man, that was the
Yeah.
thing that everybody wanted to have.
Well, it was there was all those commercials about it, right? Like they'd climb into
Mhm.
bed and clap off.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So, well, did your husband help you with kind of the like engineering of the house and how this house would work, or did he help with the inventions too? Where did he come in?
I don't know, he's such a gadgety person. He's so inventive himself. So I sort of threw him a thing like how could this be a thing? How could I make doors open and close? How like what would make sense for this type of invention? And he'd like come up with something.
Yeah,
And he actually bought like a Lego kit with the little hydroelectric, like the little hydraulic things on it
sure.
to explain how things worked. So he kind of taught me a lot of background. And then he also went through the whole book when it was done and made sure I was correct with
Yeah.
what I wrote. So it was really fun.
That's what I say. Did you guys have fun doing that together?
Oh my goodness. We talk a lot, but honestly, I sat down and I said, "Hey, can you explain the difference between alternating current and direct current?" And it was a 2-hour conversation. He lit up. It was the most fun. It was just so cool. So it was a really great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that would like just go over my head. Physics was not my forte.
There were a lot of things that did go over my head, but he was patient and he did a lot of diagrams. He showed me things. But it was so much fun to enter into his world a little bit.
Yeah. Well, what is your wish for readers when they pick up this book? What do you hope they take away from it?
Well, I wrote my main character with a little bit of like an ADHD bent. She's scatterbrained and things like that. So I feel like if there are people who feel like they're just a little bit not the right fit for this world, like this world is not made for people who are scatterbrained and disorganized. I'm hoping that they feel like seen and that they realize that, some gadgets are put together for a different purpose. They're put together differently. And it's not that they're broken, it's just that they're, like a lot of inventions in the house are not finished yet. Or, like I said, they're put together for a different purpose. I also have a lot of exploration of like, she has doubts about whether God exists, and she has to kind of like figure out how she can meld her very mechanical mind with this idea of a God who's just bigger than explanation. He's bigger than she can draw on a mathematical equation. So I'm hoping that readers will get like just a picture of God through her eyes.
Yeah. I was thinking that as you were talking about her and like how we're all built differently and God created us all to be different, right? And we all have
Hmm.
this purpose that we're here for and we might not know it, right? Because he has such a big picture for our life. And so we're not going to know the end now.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's very beautiful. Well, this is not your first novel, obviously. This is number 8 for you.
Right.
But what have you learned about yourself through writing?
I have learned my limitations, to be honest. My best writing has come when I have quit trying, when I have opened up my hands and said, okay, I am at my limit of abilities. God, you need to take the rest.
Yeah.
So my debut novel actually was a project that I started on for fun after I gave up trying to get published. I was
Wow.
writing World War II novels and just, whatever struck my fancy. And then I started having children, and I said, okay, clearly God wants me to put this aside while I raise my family. Clearly.
Yeah.
And so my newborn, when I had just one newborn, I didn't know what to do with my brain while she was napping. So I started writing for fun. And that was the novel that got picked up by a
Wow.
publisher. And then when my second novel came out and I had another baby and I wasn't sleeping, I reached a point 6 weeks before my deadline where I was like, I physically cannot do this.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said that in my head, it was sort of like God was like, finally, now we can actually get somewhere.
Yeah. It's like you're surrendering.
Yes, yes. And in that surrender is when God has the ability to do his best work.
Yeah. We talk about it. We've actually talked about it on the show a handful of times, but at the Harold and the Purple Crayon, like
Yes,
he
I love
does
that
it
book.
like giving God the crayon to do what he's going
Yeah,
to do with it and how hard that is to do.
yeah. Really often we want to be in the driver's seat of our life with God in the passenger seat, just kind of giving us directions. But he just wants to be in the driver's seat, and it's really hard to give that driver's seat up. It's really hard.
We,
It's kind of like I want to walk in the light, but I want to drag the light over to where I'm actually standing.
yeah, absolutely. So you obviously are having your 8th novel come out, but was there a book, and you said you were writing, World War II novels before. Was there a
Hmm.
book that you read that made you want to become a writer?
Well, I think as a kid, I loved Nancy Drew books. I loved the twist, the surprise, the mystery, that hanging on.
Yeah.
Um, and then as an adult, I found Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is like, it's keeping me guessing. And it surprised me. And I love to be surprised.
Yeah.
And there weren't a whole lot of books in the genres that I was reading that were surprising me. And I was just like, this is amazing. I want to do that. I want to surprise people.
You do an excellent job of that because I was recently reading The Love Note and
Oh,
Lady
yes.
Jane Disappears. And both of those, like, I did not predict what was going to happen. And I was like, wow, that came out of nowhere at the end, like, and it, so maybe I'm just not very good at guessing or thinking. Like, in my mind, I thought, oh, it's going to go this way. But then there was just that little twist that, like, just made the story that much better at the end of both of those.
Well, I do have a secret for that. I write 70% of the book. I send
Okay.
it to a bunch of my local reader friends and I say, how does this end? Everything they say gets tossed out. And then I have to come up with something different, which sometimes is really hard because I paint myself into a corner. But
Yeah.
I love to be able to surprise myself.
What a
It's much
unique
more
way to do
fun.
that.
It's a lot more fun when I'm like I think I know how it's going to end, and then I'm like, no. And
Yeah.
and there are some books that I've written the entire draft, and then I go back and read the first chapter and realize something that changes the ending. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. I love that it surprises you too, though. That's fantastic.
Oh yes, I would be bored if I knew how it ended.
Yeah. I wanted to also add back to your, what you've learned about yourself through writing. And I have well, episode 126 is coming out tomorrow. So I've interviewed probably 150 people at this point, and no one has ever
That's
said
impressive.
knowing their limitations. And so I just love that answer because I think that is so important to know that, right? Like when you reach that and like, nope, here is my threshold.
Yeah. And you have to feel constant, constantly how limited and because you have to keep going back to the source of where you got your talent.
Yeah.
The minute you start resting on your own skills, the minute you're going to limit what you can do.
Yeah.
Because then it's just limited to your own abilities.
Yeah. And the way we want it, right? And we're not open
Yeah.
to like the other possibilities that are there.
Right.
Yeah.
And often when I start a book, I ask God some really big questions that I don't have answers to, things that I'm frustrated about. I throw them up to him, and then the story is kind of like how we untangle it together. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I have no idea I'm not setting out to teach. I'm setting out to learn and to discover. And so it kind of changes the trajectory of my theme.
Yeah.
And I'm also surprised by all of that. So
Yeah.
that's
I
pretty
think that's
fun.
incredibly beautiful. It's like a prayer meditation with God, right? What and you
Yes.
starting it.
Yes, it is a two-way conversation that is a lot of fun.
Well, maybe listeners, I feel like that's often a question people ask, right? Is like how do you hear God, right? Like I talk to him, but how do you hear him? And maybe not writing novels is not going to be your way, but maybe throwing it up to him and maybe you journal, right? Or maybe you're just kind
Mhm.
of whatever that is. But what a beautiful way for listeners to kind of think of it outside the box of how to hear God's voice for them.
I'm so lucky I was able to find the passion that he gave me and use that to connect with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I was able to figure out what connects to him
Yeah.
for me specifically.
Yeah. It's like that was your lifeline to him there.
Yeah,
And we all have one. We just might not know what it is.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
if you're not there yet, listeners, keep going. So, well, are you working on any upcoming books or projects?
I am. I have about 5 or 6 different projects going at the same time because
Wow.
I can't decide what I want to do next. So they're all at the beginning stages. There's nothing real firm, so there's not a whole lot to tell at the moment.
Yeah.
But I've got fiction, nonfiction, kids book, adult historical, and magical realism. All the things.
They're all just simmering on the burners over there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real easy. If you get bored or paint yourself into a corner with one project, you just kind of skip to another one for a little while.
Yeah. I imagine, I feel like having talked to quite a few authors are it's very similar to podcasting in the way of like, okay, well, if I get kind of bored of like editing my episode, right? Or like in your case,
Hmm.
editing a novel, it's like, well, okay, I could then jump over here and I could work on the show notes for this episode, or
Yeah.
I could jump over here and I can figure out how to market it a little bit better. And like, there's all these different hats we wear. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of
Hmm.
tired of this one. I'm going to jump over to this ship and I'm going to try doing some things over here.
Yeah, I love that you have that flexibility that you allow yourself to bounce back and forth. Some people just kind of follow such a linear schedule, like this is what I need to be doing. And so I love that you have that flexibility with yourself.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I feel like we all have like our own level of chaos we can deal with and we can manage. And someone
Hmm.
else would probably step into my life and be like, well, this is like way too chaotic. I need to like just stick with this, like you said.
Hmm.
But it's what works for me. And I think we need to figure that out. And again, talking to authors and the many hats you wear as authors, not just writing, right? And everything else you're
Hmm.
doing, it sounds very similar.
Yeah, and I've had people ask me, how can you keep your character straight when you're editing one, writing another, drafting something else,
Yeah.
brainstorming? But I don't know. It's just more fun when you
Yeah.
bounce around because you inevitably dry up in one book. You get stuck, you get tired of it, but then if you go work on another project, you can come back to it
Yeah.
and it works well.
Absolutely. Okay. So when did you start writing?
My first stories were in second grade when I was kind of the quiet kid and it bothered me that kids were getting bullied. And so I couldn't really say anything to them. So I wrote them into stories and I give the kids superpowers who are being picked on. And the stories leaked out into the classroom and nobody knew who wrote them, but they read them. And I will tell you, it changed the dynamic of the classroom.
In a good way?
Yes, it was so much fun. There were a lot
Amazing.
of discussions and things brought to light. And for some reason, it kind of dulled the bully's desire to pick on kids as much, especially like a couple of them. It was really
Yeah.
fun. And I think I just fell in love with storytelling from that minute. And I sort of fell in love with the fact that everyone has these hidden superpowers.
Yeah. Well, I think that showed you the power of storytelling, right?
Oh,
Like when you would
yes,
see the
yes.
bully's reaction or like how they would change.
Yes, it shifted everything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So it became my voice when I wasn't a very loud person.
I love that. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. What type of genres do you enjoy reading?
Ooh, I bounce around a lot there too. Um, I go through phases. I really, really, really enjoy like my natural inclination would be either like really creative kids books,
Okay.
like the Narnia Chronicles or Roald Dahl, those types of books,
Okay.
or some sort of like mystery suspense, like something that will surprise you.
Yeah.
So I've always gravitated towards mystery novels, towards gothic, um, both in the general and the Christian market. I read Mary Higgins Clark, I read John Grisham, um, all sorts of things.
Yeah. Someone just mentioned Mary Higgins Clark on an episode, and I was like, she's still writing? I didn't know she was still writing.
He actually just passed away,
I know.
like
Well, I feel
not that
okay.
long ago.
I know. I'm
But
like, I said that. I'm like, shoot, because it was like well, this show's, we're in our third year now. So this must have been like
Mhm,
over a year
mhm,
ago. And I was like, she just had a novel come out? Like she's still writing, but I know she did pass away.
mhm.
So can't remember.
Right.
Yeah. But
I know her daughter, she co-wrote with her daughter,
okay.
Carol, I think. She's probably still writing, I
Okay.
would imagine. And then I feel like there's some posthumous publications. Maybe
Sure.
there are things that they're just getting, a new version or something, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, those were like the books that kind of got me into chapter books when I was a teenager. You know, it's like I kind of fell
Yes.
into those and I would devour them.
Yes. I think my books as a teenager were the Vienna Prelude series.
Oh, yeah.
By the Tainies, I loved those. Um, Yeah, those were really good. Those were fun. And then I discovered John Grisham, Mary Higgins Clark, and I decided I liked mystery and suspense.
Yeah. Well, how in your busyness do you find time to read? Because you have a lot on your plate.
I do. Um, so I was kind of filling every spare moment for a long time until God was sort of getting a hold of me and giving me this impression of like, why are you doing this? And so he invited me into spending Sabbath in a different way. So my afternoons is when I write, when my babies were sleeping, when they were
Okay.
napping.
Yeah.
So Sunday afternoons when I would normally write, I read a book. And I pick a book that delights me. Like
Yeah.
not a book that I have to read for research, not a book that I have to read for endorsement, but just a book I really want to read.
Yeah.
Just something that sounds really delicious. And then at night, I usually read in bed for like 20 minutes or something like that. And, just on my treadmill and whenever I can fit it in.
Yeah.
I do audiobooks while I do dishes and things like that.
Yeah.
But I always have stories kind of going either, on audio or just in my head. Um, so they just fill the cracks.
Yeah. A story-filled life is what I'm thinking as you're
Yeah.
talking.
Mhm.
So, well, I have asked you to bring a book flight today of three books. Can you tell us what three books and how you chose them, whether your favorites or they've influenced you?
I would say Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca
Okay.
would be one of them. I would say Emily of New Moon by Ella Montgomery.
Okay.
She was so passionate about writing,
Yeah.
Emily, and so
Okay.
it spilled out of her and she just had to do it. Um, and then I would say probably any one of the books by Roald Dahl because he taught me to stretch my imagination
Yeah.
and that just about anything was possible.
I could see where that would be for sure because he had, I feel like those stories were wild in a way, right? Like there just was so
Sure.
much in them.
Hmm.
Wild, but
Yeah.
in a good way. Like, wow, this is so creative.
Yes. And it always made sense. He made it make sense somehow, but he just stretched the bounds of reality a little bit. And that was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing some of your favorite books with us. How I love to end our show here is with our bonus questions, and they're just speed round you can answer really quick. Are
Okay.
you a rereader?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then what is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Ooh, a lot. I would say The Bright Unknown by Elizabeth Byler Youngs. I think that's the right title.
Okay.
It's something like that.
Okay.
That was a really good book. Oh man, there's so many books by Christy Camberon and Amanda Dykes. They just kind of sink in.
Yeah.
They get under your skin. They get in your head and move the furniture around.
I love that saying. And I also think there's books that influence us at different times in their life and or in our lives, right?
Mhm.
And I think people were like, "Oh, I don't know," because it could be so different because it varies based off what's happening in your world at that time.
Yes, there's sometimes a book meets like the perfect time in your life. Yeah,
Yeah.
that intersection.
Yeah, that serendipity there of a book. So, where is your favorite place to read?
I love reading in my family room with my family, just the chaos all around me.
Yeah.
It's cozy. It
Quick
sounds kind
question, you
of
can read in it.
counterintuitive. Yeah, it sounds really counterintuitive to read, but I love it when my family's with me and we're all together. And a lot of times they're reading too. And yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, I admire that. So I like aspire to have that, right? If it's an audiobook, I usually can. Um,
Hmm.
but I still print unless it's like more of like a really lighthearted, like I don't have to really totally be paying attention. Maybe I'll try it.
Yes.
Lastly, what are you reading next?
Next. Let's see. I think I am reading Amanda Dykes' book. The one about the water, and I'm blanking on the name. It's about Venice.
Okay. Oh yes, I just put that one on my list. I'll look up the title for our show notes and we'll have it on there,
Thank
listeners. But
you.
yeah, I would say within the past 2 months have added that one to my TBR too, because like I mentioned to you, we lived in Italy, and so anything that's Italy related, I have to read. So
That's beautiful. Actually, my second book that I wrote it before I was published, and it was set in Italy. And it was kind of about my husband's family, like a
okay,
little bit, and vineyards. And then when I got published, they're like, well, we want to brand you with Victorian England. So I moved it to right over the channel. I moved it to Wales, and then they said, nope, you need to make it in England. So I made it work.
that's interesting how that happened. So like. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like they want to push like into, like you said, brand you into England?
Yeah, so I wrote Lady Jane Disappears, which is my debut,
Yeah.
and it honestly was just sitting down and writing a scene that I couldn't get out of my head, and it just evolved into a whole book. And
Wow.
it just happened, like the voice that came out was very Victorian England because I read a lot of the Brontes and, those types of books and
Sure.
Charles Dickens. And so it just naturally came out. And so then they were like, well, this is your thing. This is what you write now. It's
Okay.
all going to be Victorian England. So I had this amazing story from a friend of like a family friend who like her father buried all his money in Italy and then died and the family didn't know where it was. And so they were destitute. And I loved that story, so that I picked that up and I made it English
I
to
love
fit.
that. I mean, because it sounds very probable, right? Like that could happen.
Yeah, yeah. It
Wow.
did. I mean,
Yeah.
it they didn't trust banks. They didn't trust
Yeah.
like the church owned everything and they were a little bit corrupt. And so he just buried everything. And I was always fascinated about like what happened to the money. In real
Yeah.
life, they never found it.
Wow.
So I made that into a novel.
Yeah. I remember my dad being like, "Oh yeah, the shoebox of money in the closet," you know, like
That sounds safe, right?
yeah, exactly. I'm like, "Well, I guess it was safer than the banks, right?" Or like
Yeah, there
uh,
were definitely periods in history that was true.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me tonight. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
I appreciate you having me on here.
You are so welcome. Today's episode was sponsored by BakerBookhouse.com. From a Scottish marriage of convenience and a World War II romance to a mysterious mansion of unraveling secrets, these heartfelt stories are brimming with love and adventure across the centuries. Here's a bit about each book before you order your next read from BakerBookhouse.com with 30% off and free shipping. The first one is The Indigo Heiress by Laura Franz. A colonial American indigo heiress is forced to wed a Scottish merchant she loathes to settle her family's debts and secure a suitable marriage for her sister. Leaving all she's ever known, she sails to Scotland to enter the complex world of the powerful Buchanan clan, who are anything but what they seem. The second book of the book flight is In Midnight on the Scottish Shore by Sarah Sundin. Scylla van der Zee is desperate to escape the occupied Netherlands during World War II and agrees to become a spy in Britain. But her plans to betray the Germans and work for the Allied cause are derailed when a suspicious Scottish lieutenant finds her on the shores of his home. The last book is The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House by the one and only Joanna Davidson Politano. Clockmaker Sidney Forrester inherits the estate of a mysterious industrialist, the estranged uncle she never met. The unusual house, brimming with unfinished inventions of the most clever sort, seems to be trying to tell her something. With the help of an unlikely ally, Sidney works to uncover the secrets of the estate, including who murdered its late owner. Get all of these titles discussed today for 30% off and free shipping through BakerBookhouse.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Joanna Davidson Politano, including her book flight of books that have inspired her. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.